Welcome to the Burn Boot Camp podcast, where you'll find the motivation, inspiration, and empowerment that leads to real transformation. The lifelong kind. Keep listening and keep moving, Burn Nation.
What is up, Burn Nation? It's DK, and I'm here in this random warehouse. Welcome to the Burn Boot Camp podcast. We're here doing a photo shoot. And Isaiah and I thought it'd be a great idea to break out some of the questions that we got from Instagram and give you some answers. So we are in this random warehouse. Where are we at, Isaiah? We're somewhere in like First Ward here in Charlotte, getting some photos and doing some content. But welcome, everybody. And Isaiah is going to go ahead and feed me those questions, and I'm going to go through some of my answers. So Isaiah, what is the first one, buddy? Okay, so the question is, what is the culture index? All right, so most of you probably have no idea what that means. The culture index is similar to like a Myers-Briggs assessment. It's a personality assessment, and it's one that we use in business. So any of you who are business owners out there who want to make better hiring decisions, all right, the culture index is a personality assessment that allows you to make better decisions when you're hiring people on board, because we all know that it's people and it's process inside of a business. And when you have those two things right, when the people, all right, have their visions heard, their ideas heard, they're listened to, and you thread your visions and your ideas and your thoughts through their vision, all right? That's the people side. That's very important to nail that. Most companies don't do that. And the other side is the process side, which is documenting everything and everybody following all of the core processes, all right? So this kind of sits right in the middle of the process and the people. And you basically will take the culture index analysis and assessment, and it will give you two graphs. It'll give you your actual personality, and then it'll give you your job personality, which is really, really interesting and cool. All right, so the culture index is something I could nerd out on literally for like hours on end. All right, I'm a daredevil. That means I'm very, very high autonomy and very, very low detail. And if you looked at Morgan's culture index, it's the opposite, all right? She is about 2 standard deviations away from autonomy, so she likes to have vision. She likes to have a goal. She's an executor, an implementer. She has that high detail orientation. And so her and I work very, very well together. Thank the Lord that we actually ended up being yin and yang to each other, and that we weren't both daredevils, because that would never ever work in a business, because there'd be too many ideas and no execution. So this is what the culture index teaches you, is how to build the teams around you based on their skills and what you need for the process. Okay, so some of the important things that I think about when I'm writing a book. So first of all, for those of you that bought Stop Starting Over and learned something from it, thank you so much. All right, I so appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Those of you who have bought it but didn't learn something, read it, because the point is not to drive sales and drive revenue. It's to help make you understand the principles and the methodology that's going to be able to help you maximize the quality of your life. So read it. Let me know, what'd you learn from Stop Starting Over if you have read it? I'd really be interested in knowing how it's affected your life personally. So now that we've got a little bit of success with my first self-published book, Morgan and I right now are working on a huge project, a big book project that her and I are co-authoring. I'm not going to tell you the title yet or give you any of the juicy details, but we really hope to release sometime in quarter 2 or 3 in 2023. And the process is really cool. So I'm a writer by nature. Well, actually, my agent, Tom Miller, he said, actually, Devan, you're a pretty good writer, but you're not a professional writer. And I said, well, okay, Tom. He goes, you need a professional writer. And so what happened, my process is I wake up in the mornings, and a lot of times in the evenings, I start my day and end my day just by writing original thought. Answering a complex question, putting a question at the top of the page, and then writing for like an allotted amount of time. So let's say 30 minutes. In order to just get all of my thoughts on paper. Here's what I want you to know about writing. Writing is so important. I highly encourage that you do it, because it makes your thoughts permanent. It allows you to organize your thoughts in a way nothing else does. To clearly articulate those thoughts and to put them on paper, there's also a permanency about that. you're cementing those thoughts into the universe, and they're not some fleeting thing that, comes in and out and we have no idea how. And it's a method of capturing all your creativity, all your imagination, and it's a way of really gauging your tasks and what you have to do that day. A lot of people take a lot of pride in writing a journal. Some people take a lot of pride in writing a very thorough to-do list. Whatever you like to write, I just like to write answers to questions that people ask me. So they ask me a question, put it at the top of the page, write it out. Makes it permanent, allows me to have a more articulated, better answer, more well-articulated, better answer next time I'm asked that question. So this business has taught me so much about myself. When I first started this journey, I had little to no self-awareness. And that journey was really that level of self-awareness from kind of 0 to 100, that journey throughout was all made possible by the different trials and tribulations that I would go through with the Burn Bootcamp brand, right? As I would have to face bigger problems. Bigger goals create bigger problems, which force you to become a bigger person. Bigger goals create bigger problems, which force you to become a bigger person. That pathology to me has been how I've been able to shape my character. By solving the problems in the brand, I've had to go find out the information. I've had to become a better listener, a better communicator. As a leader, as somebody who is responsible for sharing the vision, I have to listen and become empathetic, and also don't allow that empathy and that compassion for other people to mitigate any competitive ambition that I have, and continue to push forward with tenacity and grit and intensity, but also be able to slow down enough to be able to stop and say, hey, how you feeling today? What's going on? What can I help you with? Because my job as a leader is to help other people become leaders. And through the process of helping other people become leaders, because I think it's obvious that we can't do everything, right? We need other people around us to really help support and supplement our vision. If we're not building those leaders, then we're not growing ourselves. So by the very act of you building leaders and having that intentionality, you yourself are becoming a better leader. You have to be, okay? Because you're responsible for leading more well-articulated, more intelligent, more cerebral people. And to me, that's I use that word intentionally. It's forced me to become a better version of myself, not by my own merit, but because I did not want to let the people that I support, that I'm responsible for, that I've dedicated my time, effort, and energy to, I did not want to let them down. To me, my biggest motivations come off the back of making those people who I'm responsible for in my life, including my own blood, my own family, but my greater Burn family. That's what makes me, I think, the best human possible, is not wanting to let those people down and really ensuring that they're proud of the decisions that I make as an entrepreneur and as a leader. Okay, the question is, why do people have these addictive tendencies from their past? And somebody who has experienced that firsthand, I can tell you, and you could probably answer this question for yourself, we are a product of our upbringing, of our surroundings, of our environment. There's circumstantial external elements of our lives that we grew up, that we're exposed to, that become natural, that become normal. Whether you want to believe that you're born as a clean slate or not, I know that the first 7 years of your life are the formative years. Those are the years where if your parents don't get it right, if they don't nurture you the way they're supposed to nurture you, then you're going to have some correcting to do later down the line. And for me, I was moving around without a home the first 7 years of my life. It's, up until about 5th grade, from house to house, from state to state to state. I had no permanency. I watched my parents go through alcoholism, drug abuse, physical violence. I was a victim of those things. And for me, it was very obvious at a young age that I did not want to go down that path. But here's what's true. Even to today, I have the addictive tendencies of my parents. I have what I was exposed to is my natural path. It's what I saw. It's everything that was around me all the time, right? And so for me to be able to get to 18, 19, 20 years old, where you start to contemplate life and what are we all here for and what's my purpose, those questions never even come to the surface if you're inebriated. And so for me, I would say the answer to that question is you have to work really, really, really hard if you're somebody who's exposed to those things as a young child to steer clear of them constantly. So you always have to pay attention. There's always has to be a bodyguard at the doorway of your mind, having that filter of, what my natural ill tendencies are versus what would be good for me, and choose more times than not to do the things that would be good for you, good for your family, good for society, good for the people around you, and less of the things that you were exposed to as a young child that will absolutely harm you because you've seen that manifest itself in somebody in your life who was a role model when you were young. And the last thing that I would say is you'll never stop fighting that. If you're somebody who was exposed to the amount of abuse that I was, you're never gonna forget it. It's, I still dream about it now. And I had a tattoo put on my arm, the tail of two wolves, because it is one of the first things that I found when I was looking for a way, when I was looking for wisdom, when I was seeking out a better way to think about the world and a better way to organize my life. I came across the Tale of Two Wolves. It's a fable, and this fable stories a Cherokee Indian grandfather and the grandson, and the grandson, basically asks the grandfather, he says, "Hey, what am I?" And the grandfather responds with, "You are both good and evil. You are both prosperity, you are joy, you are happiness, you are playfulness, but then you are also malevolence, and you are also sorrow, and you are also destructive, and you are also toxic. And you need to realize that your natural tendency when you're born is you got to split. Okay, you got to split, and your decisions are what is going to make you take one path or another." And at the end of the fable, what it says, the grandfather tells, the grandchild rather asks the grandfather, he says, "Well, if life is both good and evil, Grandpa, then what will I be?" And the grandfather replies with, "Whichever one you feed." And I got this tattoo as a representation of an arrow going through the evil, malevolent eye, and the blue eye being one that is good and prosperous, reminding myself that I've killed that demon a long time ago, and I will only let manifest forward the things in my life that are prosperous, that are joyful, that are playful, that are purpose-driven, that have an integral meaning behind them, take responsibility for my own life, hold myself accountable for the things, my actions, and be able to remind myself constantly just by looking down that, hey, you are more... based on what you were exposed to, you are more evil than you are good. So you have to work extra hard, my friend, to be able to maintain a clean track record throughout your life. And I'm dedicated to that, and that's why I got that tattoo. So if you've ever heard my three things would be the advice that I would give anyone if I could only give them three things. It's learn every day, emulate greatness, and do a demanding workout every day. Now, I emulate greatness. Like I practice what I preach. And when I was looking for a role model, I was trying to find two people who I wanted to be just like. That if I were to paint a picture of my life in the future, whose impact would I want to have? What financial status, what type of business would I want to have? And it was really, the first person for me was Tony Robbins. And if you've read my book, Stop Starting Over, then you know that it is my fitness version of really Tony Robbins' philosophy from front to back, and how you apply that in a sense. Well, when I first heard of Tony Robbins, I was 12 years old, and I had a little personal power CD that I found. Apparently my parents were trying to get their life together at one point, which is promising. And it was underneath, it was in the bottom of their CD stack, those 8-disc CD changers that used to have, and those big technology stacks that would sit in the oak case with the glass that you would press and it would pop off, and then you would get the disc changer out and you just press whatever number you wanted, and voila, right? Back in the good old days of technology, right? Before iPhones. Well, I found a CD in there, and I listened to it on the way to school every morning. Sometimes I'd walk, sometimes I would bike, sometimes I'd have some friends pick me up. But this CD filled every void in my life that I didn't have. And the one piece of advice that I got in personal power in that CD was the following quote: "When you don't have any resources, be resourceful." It was basically saying that you can never make an excuse. That your attitude, that your effort, that your belief, those things that you can control in your inner world, that those things are power. That you don't need to have all the capital in the world to start a business. You don't need to have people around you. You don't need to have people believe in you. You don't need to have the degree. You don't need to have a complex, business model or you don't need anything fancy. You don't need a nice computer. You don't need a nice cell phone. You don't need anything. You don't even need money. You don't even need anything but ambition, anything but attitude, anything but effort and belief in yourself. And when you have those things, those are resources. And those are a resourceful attitude means that whenever I don't have something, I go find it, and there's never a reason not to find it. It's like MacGyver. Who remembers MacGyver? I don't really remember. That was before my time, but I do remember parodies of MacGyver on SNL where they would say, give me a pickle, give me a snorkel, give me a tic-tac, and give me a hang glider, and I'll build you whatever. It's like whatever resources that you would need to pull together to get the job done is what you would do, and you would figure it out no matter what. There was this undertone of like, no excuses. No one can outwork me. My effort is everything, and nobody can take that from me. So if you can't outwork me, you might look better, you might have a better degree, you might have a better house, you might have a better history, you might have a better upbringing, but you're not going to outwork me. You're not going to get in the way of me and my motivations. Like, my family's name wasn't a name. My job as a father is to create the Kline name and cement that in history and have a legacy to our name. It's not fun being part of a family where you're not prideful about your last name. Well, I'm not letting anyone get in the way of that. I'm not going to let anyone stop me there. And so Tony Robbins' psychology really shaped my psychology in just saying that, he came from nothing. He didn't have anything growing up. His mother was abusive, multiple fathers, and just a rough life. And so I always really, really connected with him on that. And now I share a lot of his psychology in my own. And so I think that's one person for me. Like, that's the one person that I would want to emulate. And the other person it's a toss-up, all right? It's a toss-up, but I really enjoy Gary Vaynerchuk and his perspective on the world. And I think when I was to say, what type of professional do I want to be in human plus my own creativity, I try to marry those things together. So it's the fitness, marketing, self-help educator who's here to help you change your life. Okay, so last question here. So speaking of being resourceful, and the quote by Tony Robbins, when you have no resources, be resourceful. This has manifested itself in like literally every crevice of our business. When we were first getting started, we wanted to find a little retail space, okay, but we're 24, we have no financial history, and not many landlords would look at us. So we kept getting the door shut in front of our face. Every retail corridor that we would go to around North Charlotte, door shut, no thanks. Where's your financial history? Don't have one. Do you have any projections or a business plan? What's a business plan? What are projections? I don't know these things, right? So we could have went two ways. We said, oh, well, that's it, nobody's going to believe in us. Nobody's going to give us any space. So let's just figure it out later. Let's go get some financial history. Let's go get a couple years of earned income at a job. And let's see if we can try in a couple years. And I was like, Morgan and I both were like, no, that's not going to happen. We are going to do is listen to Tony, and we're going to get resourceful. And so we, instead of looking at a lease, we went to the next best option, which was a sublease. And so then we targeted a few places that we knew didn't use their space at certain times, like in the morning and the evenings when we wanted to use it. And we found gymnastic centers to be the perfect pocket, and rec centers and some dance studios that we started here around North Charlotte. We had 5 subleased spots as our first 5 Burn Bootcamp locations. And once we opened the first one, we opened the subsequent 4 within 1 year. And that model was an example of when you have no resources, get resourceful. So instead of going out and getting earned income and going to find a job, we said, hey, let's just sublease. Let's find some places. We'll pay them money. We will collect history financially on the back of the business that we're actually going to take into the lease. And it actually worked out way better that way because we made way more money up front because we didn't have as much overhead. And that capital that we made up front allowed us to go into a lease being more secure because we didn't have a big savings, Morgan and I, just being, me being almost flat broke and her being sugar mama paying for the cell phone bill and on her good salary, but also paying for rent and my cell phone and taking care of the food in the house. And I was just trying to, at that point, build us a legacy, and she was just hanging over our finances in the meantime while we were building up. So that is the answer. I mean, if you can't find one door, if one door is closed or it shuts in your face, to the next. Don't waste too much time going through door one over and over and over and over and over. Don't hit your head against the wall until your forehead breaks open. No, to the next door, door two. Oh, no? Okay, to the next door, door three. Don't beg. There's always somebody out there that wants to do a deal with you. There's always somebody that believes in you. There's always somebody that wants to help you, all right? And I realized this when I got Huntersville, the very first brick and mortar that was our own, all right? We had built a great reputation in the area and a great business model, and a good friend to this day of mine and a mentor of mine, he saw us doing our thing, and he gave us a 5,000 square foot lease at a super, super, super good rate, made the process super easy, and everything worked out great. And so always know that, I think, is the way I'll finish this podcast. Always know that if you control your attitude, if you control your belief, if you control your effort, your attitude is how you behave, how you approach your goals. Your effort is how hard are you willing to work in pursuit of those goals, and your belief is what do I stand for? What do I believe in? If you have these three things and answers to those questions, that's all the resources that you need to go get it done. And if you're convicted and you move with intention and you move from your heart with purpose and passion, you're gonna get it done. I believe in you, and that's really the next stage in my career for the next 10 years is I'm gonna try to help as many people as possible believe in themselves the way I was fortunate enough to believe in myself after a rough upbringing and hitting some success with the business and just going through those levels. So many people have their struggles. So many people you have your own story, right? And it's not always sunshine and rainbows. And oftentimes it's more malevolence and dark and disturbing, right, than it is happy-go-lucky. And so my job, my quest, my mission is to help you get to that next level. So thank you for tuning into the podcast out of some random warehouse somewhere in the middle of Charlotte, and I'll take you out with two claps on two. 1, 2.